Hey, welcome back. So maybe today I could try to talk about War and Peace, maybe? I just finished it. And I like Tolstoy, but I liked Anna Karenina better, I think. Because it was more focused on the characters of Anna and Levin, and you got deeper. I've mentioned that before, but War and Peace is about like mostly two families who have a bunch of kids, and they're aristocrats, and some of the kids go to war, and some of them get married to each other, and there are some parts where he's like at the Battle of Borodino or whatever, and it's fun. I really liked the end of the book. What, didn't I have a key? Ooh. I thought I had a key. Alright, let's explore. He has an epilogue where he just talks about free will, but he does. Hold on. He talks a lot about a lot of stuff, not just free will. First, he talks about the source of power. Where does power come from? So he was kind of interested in this idea of like, well, why Napoleon? Why did he become powerful? And it was kind of an interesting point in history where before this point, it was like 99% just monarchies of big countries, maybe even 100%. Power was given because of your birth and who you were. And now, Napoleon wasn't born, I mean, obviously he was born into some kind of aristocracy, but he wasn't king, but he became the most powerful person in the world. How did that happen? Tolstoy's like, I don't know. How does this happen? This is weird. What's happening here? Because we are kind of exiting the age of monarchies, and Tolstoy's thinking like, what's going on? So he was saying like, the source of power does not come from physical strength. Oh, I like this guy. I remember going in this here and he's like, whoa. I thought it was a bad guy, but he like sells you stuff. I definitely want this. Oh, I can't afford it. Okay. Those potions are your health. Not physical power. He's not Hercules. So, Napoleon doesn't get power physically. He's not the strongest person in the world, right? He's not Hercules. Okay, it's not moral power, because the moral views on Napoleon differ greatly. He says, power is the combined wills of the masses transferred by their express or tacit consent to the ruler chosen by the masses. So, I mean, he spends like a long time explaining this, so I can't explain it better. If you want a better explanation, you'll have to go to Tolstoy. Okay, what's this? Do I get the shield yet? Boo. So we're entering this age of the will of the masses, and he kind of describes like, well, is it really the will of the masses? Like if Napoleon has an affair, is that the will of the masses? Or is it only the will of the masses is part of who Napoleon is, and like the other part is just his personal part. Is everything Napoleon does a representation of his culture at that time, the will of those people? He's like, nah, it's kind of ridiculous to say that. But especially in this time, it is becoming more... I mean, I feel like this is just Tolstoy kind of explaining democracies, even though at that time I don't think France was a democracy yet. I don't know. But the will of the masses, that's just what, like, okay. If you have a king, what the peasants want is like a tenth of what the king thinks about, or like a 100th. Like, he barely thinks about what the will of the masses wants. But now, democracy, whatever, America is awesome. You know the story. It's very American-centric, I take here, but I feel like that's what he's trying to say. That's a quote from him. Tolstoy says, "The power is the combined will of the masses, transferred by their express or tacit consent to the ruler chosen by the masses." So that's it for that. I don't know. I just want to try to talk about War and Peace one more time before I move on to another book, because I didn't really talk about it that much. But this last couple minutes, couple chapters, I really liked. You're supposed to go in here, aren't you? In the windmill? Oh, do I have enough? I don't know. I really want this. Yes, okay. Cool. Okay, so now I have 2. Can any event be imagined which could not find justification in political unity or patriotism? I really liked that section. That was kind of a summary of one of his sections, because he was talking about like killing people, like, is obviously wrong, but it can be justified through political unity and patriotism. The worst thing ever, murder, can be justified. So he's like, can anything not be justified? What could we not do that you couldn't get? So it's good to think about it like that, because, and I think we do a better job of that now in 2022 than we did in 1812, of like just being okay with whatever the country does because it's our country. That was a connected idea. Can any event be imagined which could not find justification in political unity or patriotism? That was connected to the last point about power. I don't know. Sorry. It was some idea about like a single person would look at murder as like horrible, but they can justify it through giving power to somebody else and saying like, Napoleon, you do it. Like, we want it, but we don't want to do it. So like, you would give it the power to you to do it, so you do it. And like, we won't, I don't know. Butchering War and Peace. Oh my god. He talked about free will. I wanted to get to that. That was the most interesting thing. Because, and I want to play this at the end of today. I'm going to play you an excerpt. Where do I get the shield? I need it. Oh, wait, use my thing here. There are laws and forces. Okay, this was a cool idea. And this is kind of when I was talking about, what was that, 2 weeks ago? When I was talking about predestination. He basically said exactly what I said, except much better, obviously. And I'm sure I mean, through the diffusion of historical knowledge, like, I'm sure I somehow got my idea from Tolstoy. Like, he told this, and, like, other people told it, and I kind of learned it. I didn't come up with it by myself. So he says that he does kind of lay out a course for, like, there not being free will. He doesn't say that, because he's, like, he's smart about it, and he lays out both sides of whatever. There are laws and forces acting on us that we can't contradict. We can't contradict gravity. We can't contradict scientific laws, right? No matter how much free will you have, you can't have a ball go against gravity. You can use the laws, but you can't go against them. And so he's saying just like that, there are certain laws that act on your life that you can't go against. Oh, I still have a potion. Just like you can't contradict gravity, you can't contradict the forces applied on your life. I don't know, where you're born, like everything. But just like even the molecules in the air, there's so much that you can't control that's acting on you that it might as well just be no free will, I guess. And he had a quote that I was going to play. There are degrees to dependence on external conditions. That's how we measure guilt in a trial. Okay, that was like a separate point. That was him kind of distancing more away from, like, well, there is some free will. Because I think the idea, and I kind of like this idea, is like degrees of free will. Like, and that's how we find guilt in a trial, right? How much did this person affect the thing that happened? Did he walk up to a random person on the street and shoot him in the head? That was totally his decision. There weren't any external factors acting on him, right? But if, like, he was caught in a firefight and, like, he had a gun and he shot somebody, like, those are external things happening that are okay, and it's like he didn't even really have a choice. He had to do it. So it's like, okay, he's not guilty. Does that make sense? He kind of used that as an analogy for describing free will. Like, depending on how many external factors are acting on you, that's how much free will you have in a given situation. But and then part of that is also like, well, and there are so many external factors, like, you basically don't have any free will. So okay, that's it. I didn't make any progress. I have to go to the old house, but I have to find the key. Oh no, I made some progress. I went around or something. I gotta get some upgrades. Okay, so I want to play chapter 356, minute 5 is the point where I'm like, this is what I said, but he's saying it better. Let's go. 356, minute 5. You'll have to listen to the insufferable Brit guy, but it's only for a couple seconds. Okay, play. Why aren't you playing?
Chapter 8.
Okay.
If history had to deal with external phenomena, the establishment of this simple and obvious law pointed out to him controverts the incontestably that his will is subject to laws. He does not, and cannot, believe it. However often experience and reasoning show a man that in the same circumstances, with the same character, he does the same thing as before, yet on being led the thousandth time in the same circumstances, with the same character, to an action that always ends in the same way, he feels just as unhesitatingly convinced that he can act as he chooses, as ever. Every man, savage and sage alike, however incontestably reason and experience may prove to him that it is impossible to imagine two different courses of action under precisely the same circumstances, yet feels that without this meaningless conception, which constitutes the essence of freedom, he cannot conceive of life.
So did you get that? He's saying like it's very obvious to a person that, like, given the exact same situation, you would have done the same thing. But then the next part of that, he goes into this idea of like free will and freedom equals life. Like, the more free you are, the more alive you feel and the happier you are. So if you feel like you have no free will, you can't conceive of life. So how can a person who knows this, it's obvious, a person in the same situation 1,000 times with the same X factors would do the same thing every time? They know that. But then how can they be happy? I don't know. See you tomorrow.